do. I was happy for Bruno last night, and genuinely happy for him because, look, he had a torrid first half of this season. He's had bad periods in seasons as well. I've criticised him. I thought he was going to be a player that had to go in terms of big salary, underperforming. Is he a good enough leader? But we're starting to get the very best out of him again. And it isn't just goals and assists. His overall play. Look, he makes mistakes. You could put a little compilation together and put some clown music over it and go, oh, look, he gave the ball away. But I think by and large, he played very well. But where I was really happy for him is the first midfielder since Sir Bobby Charlton in 1964 to score a hat-trick in a European knockout game. So from a historic point of view, he has done something only ever done once before, never done in the latter stages either, by the way, where the real business end is the first midfielder to ever do that. And even if I'm going to be slightly, listen, I've never put Bruno gets nowhere near Sir Bobby Charlton in terms of legendary status at the football club. I would never try to do that. But Sir Bobby Charlton was more of an attacking midfielder, a second striker. Bruno last night was playing in a, you could call it an 8 or a 6, which, you know, the commentators here were saying it was a 6, but he was playing in central midfield. He wasn't playing as a 10 or a second striker. So to score a hat-trick from midfield, his overall performance, I was very, very proud of Bruno Fernandes last night. It was a captain's performance, you know, and look, he was under scrutiny and rightfully so earlier on in the season, but I'm just happy that he has turned it round and he's put in performances now that warrant praise, if that makes sense. But yeah, very, very good from him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah.
Go on, bro.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you guys saw that. He posted a picture yesterday with the hat trick ball. And you know how usually, like, when you win the hat trick ball, like, a lot of people like to sign it, like your teammates sign it. Someone wrote, and this is why I find it so funny, because I think that picture should have taught a lot to the fan base. But when you see that, someone wrote on it, and we don't know who. He said, "You were still shit in the first half of the season," and it has a signature. I'd love to know who wrote that. Well, that there just shows you everything you needed to know. I'm so tired of United fans being overly toxic and equally being overly gassed. Bruno had a horrible first half of the season. I don't care what anyone thinks. If you don't think he had a poor first half of the season, you're just oblivious. The guy got sent off like 3 times. That alone should tell you how bad his first half of the season was. Equally, over the last few weeks, I've said it's been about 7 games right now, where no matter what happens, no matter how good or bad we are on the pitch, he is been at least putting up numbers. You got to look at that and say, listen, without him, the last 6-7 games, we probably have a lot more defeats and have a lot less wins. And we didn't even win a lot. So we only have 2 wins in our last 6. So we drew 4 and won 2. Without him, though, there would be maybe like 4 losses and like 2 draws. Moral of the story is, everyone who just doesn't want to say anything good about Bruno, you lose all credibility when he's playing well and you don't want to say it. Equally, everyone who wants to gaslight people and say, oh, stop calling Bruno shit, he wasn't shit. No, he was shit in the first half of the season. His teammate wrote it on the ball, and he proudly took that ball and put a picture on Instagram with it. So he knows that he wasn't good. He actually came after the City game, and I mentioned this yesterday, Terry, on the match reaction. He admitted after the City game when we won, he said, I question the team, mainly myself, why I don't do more performances like this, because I've been poor for quite a while. He's like, I haven't had a good game like this for a while. There you go.
Yeah.
Says, and you were, and I forgot what the second one says. I can barely read it.
How much did you pay the ref?
Oh, how much did you pay the ref to get these penalties? It's so.
You zoomed in to read that, yeah?
I didn't zoom in to read that. They just put it out there.
Do you know what? Do you know what's really interesting though as well? I think people zoomed in. I think it's listen. You're spot on, Staffy. Sorry to interject. You're spot on.
No, go ahead.
He needs to be criticized when he plays badly, and it's right to do that. I think we all at times in a match reaction can overreact and say. I saw someone sent this to me. Oh, you should feature this on Fan Channel Review, and it was Craig from the Anfield Agenda. We haven't featured it, where he was talking about. This was in sort of December 2023, where he said, "Get rid of Mo Salah now. He's over the hill. He's never going to get back to the peak of his powers. Let's move on." And we all say these things sometimes when you watch someone in bad form. But equally, the majority of us address it when we know we're wrong and say, I shouldn't have said he had to go, but I was right to call out his poor form. Spot on. My problem is the Man United fans that took that poor form, and so the opposite side of what you're saying, and went with, all that praise he got for 4 years, told you it was all bullshit, This last 3 months is proof the last 4 years was nonsense. And you see it right this season with Foden. People want to undo everything that's come before this season because of a bad campaign. You're seeing it right now with Cole Palmer. The last 18 months, people are trying to write that off because he's hit the first little crisis of his career, which is very, very normal. The toxicity levels of wanting to be right is amazing. And equally, what this ball also shows, though, for me, and I'd love to talk to Roy Keane about it, doesn't this show that the dressing room loves him? That they feel comfortable to write those jokes and have that fun with him on a ball, that ball will sit in his trophy cabinet at home for the rest of his life. And people are writing that, and it's funny. You've all been at work. People have wrote on a T-shirt or a card before you've left. And you want to know the guys you get on with well at work will write a bit of bullshit in there. I can't believe you got the promotion, you shit, or something, right? Your friends do that at work. I think this also shows that the dressing room love and respects him. So the idea that, the way he moans on the pitch, it means the squad must hate him, that's dead and buried for me as well. That can just be dropped as a talking point now. Equally, I think you're bang on, Staffy. When he's poor, let's call it out. But equally, when he's poor, that doesn't mean everything that's good that's come before should be written off. And I think you're right. But I don't know if it is toxicity, but it's about people, for me, just always wanting to be right and not having the guts and being kind of cowards, really, in not being able to say, do you know what? I overspoke there, or I misspoke. I shouldn't have said he has to be sold. Or, do you know what? It's not really my cup of tea. But objectively speaking, it's almost 100 goals for Man United. He has the most goals and assists ever by any player in the history of the UEFA and Europa League. He's one of the best. He's in the top 4 goal-scoring midfielders in the history of our football club. Objectively speaking, I'm just wrong. I can't keep saying he's a bad football player. I just wish that people could become more grown up and have those conversations.
Terry. And I've said that for years. My criticism of Bruno, and by the way, this good form still hasn't changed any of my opinion on Bruno, because I always knew that Bruno could put up GA. That was never my issue with him.
Yeah, facts.
My issue with Bruno is always going to be, when we're a very good team, how far does he take us when he's our best player? And I look at Bruno, and I mean this in the most respectful way. I feel like you can only get so far when Bruno is your best player. Not when you're a shit team right now. Obviously, this team is shit, so I have a lot more to address other than Bruno. But when we were a decent team and we had like a front three that was bagging goals, and Rashford, Martial, and Greenwood, we had a midfield of Pogba and Fred and Matic. When we were actually a decent team, that's why my criticism was more, because I felt like we can never take that next step to compete with Man City at that time. Whereas, like, yeah, Bruno's going to make us that. I always feel like your ceiling is limited when Bruno's your best player on a good team. But that's a topic in a different day. But when I'm contending for leagues, I'll talk about that. I can't talk about that now.
I agree with you. I agree with you. If Bruno's your best player, we're probably not winning a league title. But I never took that out on Bruno. I viewed that as, well, the club should be Bruno I think Bruno can play for all the top teams in the world right now. Whether he starts in all the teams or he's a regular feature, so always coming on off the bench as an example, I think he gets into Man City squad, Liverpool squad, Real Madrid. So I think he plays for those teams. I think he gets into most of them. But I also agree you can find midfielders that are better, players that are better, or that have a different skill set that also complement us. A lot of the conversations surrounding Man United in the last 5, 6, 7 years have been so basic, so one-track minded, so shallow as a worm's grave. It's just been, player A is not better than player B. If you think that, you don't know ball. I've just got to a point where it's boring. Of course, we need more than Bruno Fernandes to win a league title. It's a team sport. But the idea that Bruno Fernandes has ever been the biggest problem at the club, I just feel like that debate's over now for me. I think
what it is for me, right? Obviously, looking at it objectively and looking at it from an outside point of view as well. I know Bruno was putting up mad numbers when he came to United. And there was a reason why this guy was being called Fernandes, bro, right? Because if you remember, when he was performing, when he was playing over 90 minutes, his performances weren't that great. Like, I used to watch him and think his decision making is poor. There's times where he can just pop it off and you know, crash the box a little bit late. You know what I mean? Instead of just going for the wonder ball every single time. That there was people that were, you know, comparing him to KDB when he first came and that. And I'm like, I know the numbers are crazy right now, but when I'm watching him, I'm sorry, bro. KDB is levels above this guy.
No, he's similar to the Dunn, and it's gonna upset a lot of people. And you probably know without me saying the name who he's similar to. Say it.
You say it.
No. Come on, because I don't want people to think like, "What, this is pre-play." You know who I'm talking about. GA without performances.
Yeah, bro. That's the biggest thing with me with I was about to even say his name just there.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna think this other day. Mo Salah, bro. He's Mo Salah in the midfield.
Yeah, exactly. Like
I thought you were going to say Frank Lampard. I thought you were saying Frank Lampard.
No, I'm talking about like current players. Lampard, he was a little bit better than that.
Lampard used to perform. So people that have always had this take, right? I think it's fair, innit? Fair enough to say, listen, Bruno gets the GA, but I need more from him in terms of the performances. I feel like there's been many games where he's been more of a net negative instead of being a positive. I know there's certain games he might have won you the game, but when you break it down, the amount of times he's lost the ball, the amount of times he can play the easier pass and he chooses to go for the wonder ball that's going to be on compilations, right? All of these things, I take it into consideration when I'm analyzing the player, right? And for me, I wouldn't want a Bruno starting in my 11. I'll be real. I don't mind him as a squad player. I think he's someone that...
He can't be your best player. If he's your Robin, not your Batman, you get away with it. Because what you just said is actually spot on. There was a moment yesterday in the first half, because that's why I said I don't think he played good in the first half. We got a free kick right after the halfway line. It wasn't that far off the halfway line. And instead of crossing it into the 18, he kind of saw the goalkeeper was off his line a little bit. So he tried to like catch him off. But the ball was about 30 yards off goal. So it looked horrible. And they put the camera on Ruben. Ruben was just, he looked so disgusted. He was like, what was that? These are the things that you don't get away with sometimes when you're competing for the biggest trophies. Not that moment, but that mentality. Because I'll tell you what, the reason we got away with doing that against Sociedad, because we were much better than Sociedad. It took us a matter of seconds to always win the ball back from Sociedad. If you're playing a prime Man City at the time, and you do that, you know you're not getting the ball for another 5 minutes. And then you look at it and you're like, this is why we can't be too wasteful against a team like this. If we're playing a PSG as an example for what they've been doing this season, and we're in that level of competition, and we're playing a Barcelona, you can't get away with certain things like that. This is why I'm always going to go back and say Bruno is not a bad player technically. When it comes to technical ability, he could shoot, he could pass, he can do a lot of things. It's his decision-making that's always pissed me off.
So I understand that though, boys. The problem, the only problem I have with your analysis is that you're not comparing the team he's in with, when you're comparing him against KDB, you're not comparing him against the team that he is in as an example. So yes, that free kick he tried last night, it went horribly. But I've seen David Beckham try things from free kicks for Man United and it not work out as an example. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, brilliant player for Chelsea. I remember 2 games running, he did the same free kick. He tried doing this thing on the outside of his foot and it ended up going out for a throw. The swerve was so mad. And I just remember, it was a vivid memory I have of watching these free kicks and just laughing. He tried it 2 weeks running, but nobody really got it in because he was a consistent goal scorer and there was a decent Chelsea team around him. I think that Bruno Fernandes has also been a victim of how poor the squad building has been at Manchester United, because he, by and large, has been our best player, and the drop-off between him and lots of these fellow midfielders in the last 5 years has been so vast. His mistakes and his misses and his poor decisions get hyper-focused on. If Bruno was playing in a vastly superior team, his mistakes would be covered up. If we had a side that invariably won the ball back whenever we lost it, we wouldn't be as annoyed about losing the ball. But because we were losing the ball a lot under Ten Hag and under Ollie, and we didn't have a great defensive structure, and we'd often concede chances or goals, it was fuck you, Bruno, for losing the ball. When actually, when you look, factually speaking, him, KDB, and Trent, who in Bruno's time in the Premier League have been the 3 biggest creators, all typically lose the ball about the same amount of time trying to create chances as each other. The difference was the quality of the team surrounding Trent and KDB covered up for those deficiencies in their game. And that, for me, is where I feel a little sorry for Bruno, is that his flaws, which all players have, are being highlighted more. Pogba went through this at Man United. Pogba didn't have a great team around him. So, he can't do what this midfielder does. Well, that's a defensive midfield player. You know, he's not Kante. Of course he can't do what Kante does. Yeah, but why doesn't he attack more and do this? Well, he isn't afforded the ability to just be on the left and attack because he has to come back and play DM.
Go back a little bit. What did you say? He's not Kante, right? I hope people. Exactly, bro. Yeah, I hope people that keep that energy when it comes to Enzo Fernandez, when they like to judge him off the ball as if he's meant to be a destroyer, right? I say this all the time, bro. You lot talk about Enzo as if he's supposed to be winning the ball back like Caicedo. He's not a destroyer, but it's not
No.
useless.
And that's fair. And for me, it's very much a case of we do this all the time. We don't have a great. Jesse Lingard went through it. Oh, he's just nowhere near the standard. Jesse Lingard would have been a very respected squad player in Fergie's pomp. If he was used like a John O'Shea, used like a Darren Fletcher, he would have been fine. The problem is the quality of our squad dropped, and we're like, right, Jesse Lingard's a starter now, and he wasn't as good as what we got used to for 30 years almost as starting players at Man United. So we took it out on him. And I never saw it that way. I viewed it as, hang on, we've got to buy better rather than take it. Lingard can't be better than he is. He's playing at his optimum best. Bruno can't be better than he is. They can be coached in little areas. What we need is to build a better, more balanced squad and I think Amorim said it himself last night. He's not adapting his system, but he's working out and learning the best role in his system for the right players. And I feel the last 2 or 3 games, we've started to see more of a coming together of this system. A long way to go. Nobody is getting carried away. But he said it about Casemiro. I'm learning the way to get the best out of him and essentially for the system to protect his flaws. And it's starting to come together. And that's what's really important. We haven't done that enough at Man United in the last 12 years. We have just, that guy ain't got any pace. It's okay. We'll leave him out there isolated on the wing to get striped. It's stupid. And I think for me, I want to try and move away from purely scapegoating individual players and looking at this more. Saw Dorgu last night. If that was Maz out there on the wing, he couldn't do what Dorgu did. If Maz had to play there, everyone would go, the system doesn't work. Well, no, it's because you don't have Dorgu out there being able to do what he does. And that's the thing for me. I get the criticism, and I'm not saying players shouldn't be criticized, but I think sometimes we go so far over the top by either misprofiling them, but also not looking at the other underlying issues surrounding them in the team. And as soon as you start winning games, as soon as you start playing well, those players still make the same mistakes, but suddenly nobody seems to care, if that makes sense. And Liverpool went through it with Firmino. No Liverpool fan cared that he wasn't a prolific goal scorer until goals started drying up around the rest of the team. And then suddenly, well, why don't Firmino score goals? Well, that's not really his job. That's not what he's great at. It's now the others are misfiring. Suddenly you've got a problem with a player that's never been a prolific goal scorer. That seems weird to me. So I do get the criticism. I was happy he did it.